Cliff, thank you so much for joining us today, and really excited to talk to you about your development as a coach and your ability to develop programs. And I want to start with you as an early coach, and you were a student assistant under Coach Bobby Knight at Texas Tech, and that had to have been a really educational experience as a young coach. So just talk about, your early development as a coach, and was there a plan to be a coach, or did you just kind of happen upon the coaching path at Texas Tech?
No, I mean, I always knew I wanted to do something other than farming. My dad and my grandfather were both cotton farmers. And, I watched my dad just work himself, almost to death. And it didn't turn into crops because it didn't rain, and I always, kind of told myself that, I wasn't going to be stuck praying for rain, and I was going to try to figure something out. Now, nothing against the farmers. I mean, that's the heartbeat of America, and I got a lot of respect for those guys, but I just knew I wanted to do something else. So you start looking around and, from a young age, when I was like, 8 years old, I was the water boy for the high school varsity football team, and rode the buses. I just loved it, man. I loved sports. I loved, everything about it. So, it's kind of a natural transition for me to go into, trying to be a coach. And after all my playing careers were over and everything was done, and you look at it, well, how do I do this? And so, it actually, if you start before Tech, I went to South Plains College, was a junior college right outside of Lubbock. And one of my grandfather's best friends was the AD there. So I went to him and asked for a job. And he said, well, what do you want to do with your life? I said, well, I want to coach. And he said, okay, well, I got the perfect job for you. And he got me hooked up as being the student assistant for South Plains College for Steve Green, who's probably the greatest JUCO coach of all time. So that's really where I got my starts with Steve. And then, after spending a year there at junior college, then I got on with Texas Tech. Never was officially hired. I just started showing up, and I had a friend who was on the team, and he'd tell me when games were. So I just started showing up to practice every day, and eventually they quit telling me to go home. So so that's how you get into it. But I knew I wanted to do something different. I knew that I've got the greatest college basketball coach of all time coaching at the school that I grew up rooting for as a kid, and right down the road from home. So I was going to do whatever I could to get that job. And I took it serious. I went in there every day. I paid attention to what coach did. I paid attention to what the assistants did. And really, it was 4 years of learning for me, just coming to work every day and just being very intentional of learning how to be a coach there. And, the roots of our program of everywhere I've ever been, come from Coach Knight and come from Texas Tech. And, I'll always be grateful and always feel extremely blessed to be able to start there.
Yeah, and I love the persistence in that story. I think a lot of coaches can identify with that without question. What stood out to you about Coach Knight's leadership?
Uh, man, you know, you always just hear the stories. Yesterday was as we record, yesterday was the anniversary of him throwing the chair. And so you always just hear the stories, and really, that's not Coach Knight. I mean, that's what people think, that may be perception, but Coach Knight really is a very loving guy in his own way. But he loves his players and he's very loyal to them, and he wants the best for them, and he does in his own way. I'm not going to deny that, but I always took away from Coach Knight that if you really do what's best for your players in every situation, that you'll pay off. And I think that's something that is kind of a misconception about Coach Knight, that he was some kind of a tyrant and that he was selfish. He was in for things for himself. That's not the case at all, man. He loved his players. He wanted the best for his players, and he wanted everybody to have success.
Yeah, and you were talking about taking notes in this early stage where you were kind of obviously grinding. You were, working hard and kind of trying to find your role on the team, taking notes at the same time. And what effect did all of those experiences have on you as you were kind of developing your coaching philosophy? You talked about using kind of coach's foundation of the Texas Tech program moving forward in your career. Like, what have you taken specifically from that experience, and what effect has it had on your leadership?
At Coach, everything was very simple and everything was very logical. And, that's one of the things I really try to stress. And, in basketball, it's real easy to want to have, 102 ball screen sets and, eight different ways to guard a ball screen. you know, just, you can really complicate things in a hurry. With Coach Knight, everything was very simple. Like, he came to practice every day with a 3x5 note card with like 5 things written on it. And that was our practice plan. And so I just thought it was genius. The genius was in the preparation. The genius was in, staying true to what his system was, being very, very, his system was flexible enough to encompass all of our strengths and weaknesses as teams, as personnel, but it was also very simple and very, rigid when it came to like the core values. So we were going to play hard every day. We were going to play together every day. We were going to value the basketball. We were going to be a good defensive team, things like that. Just the core values never changed, but, kind of the system kind of changed, but, the encompassing of all of that, it was just the simplicity of it. And so something I really learned especially as a small college coach, where we don't have the large staffs, we don't have time, and we don't, in Division III, we don't get the time outside of the season to work with guys. I really learned if we can keep things simple and be very, very good at what we do, and not be good at 10,000 things, but, so, what did Bruce Lee say? I want to master one punch rather than, whatever. I'm not very good at those, but, you get my gist. So we want to be really good at one thing, keep it simple, and really build off of that. So, and that all started with Coach Knight. That's what he did. I just, whenever I think of Coach, come to practice with that 3x5 note card with 5 things on it, I tend to start writing things down and just, all right, stop. What's really important today? And then figure that out. So that's a lasting memory. I'll always have a coach, and something that I'll keep with me my entire life.
Yeah, and I think that's something that is often overlooked about people that excel in their fields is they're usually the master at very simple things that lead to success in their field. They don't try and overcomplicate things. And I think in coaching, sometimes it's natural to want to have an answer to everything. But the simplicity does 2 things. Number one, it makes it easier on the coaching staff. And number 2, you have to teach that to the players. Like, the players have to understand your system. And I
Yeah.
love that Coach Knight just had his little index card that he wrote all his practice plans on. I think that's great.
I always thought it was really cool. So of course we had Coach Knight there as a basketball coach, but our football coach is, somebody that you're kind of in his lineage. We had, Coach Leach. And so I was a huge fan of Texas Tech football. Of course, went to school there, but I always loved Coach Leach. So when I got a chance to work with Mason Miller and you guys at McMurry, I just wore Mason out. Hey, I want to learn this air raid. Teach me the air raid. I want to learn the quarterback skill. I want to be in your quarter. He goes, you really want to learn the air raid? Yeah, because you got about 15 minutes. And so we sat down and he showed me the whole thing. I said, there's no way. There's no way. And he goes, Cliff, go watch, go to Texas Tech, go watch, watch them. And sure enough, it was that simple. And so, I think the air raid revolutionized college football, or revolutionized football, period. The simplicity of it, and I think it's funny now that these coaches that want to do the spread or the air raid, whatever you want to call it, but it's not, it's so complex. And I just think back to sitting there with Mason in his office there, McMurry, and it literally took me 15 minutes to figure it out. So, it just reinforced as a young head coach going into my first, head coaching experience. I sat down with Mason. Simple's better, for me, the way I think, my logical mind, simple's better. So, it's a great, it crosses sports barriers, and that's why I have so much respect for Coach Leach and Mason and those guys.
That's interesting. Like, what other sources do you kind of look to in your basketball coaching that maybe you try and pull inspiration from? Like, are there any other like books or any other type of leaders or sports? You mentioned the air raid. I think that's a great example. Is there anything else that you can think of that you kind of focus on?
I'm a lifelong learner. So, I get inspiration everywhere from, professional wrestling all the way to, just, weird things, country music and barbecue. And, I can take a lot of different things and look at it and be like, that relates to my program. And I'm going to take that concept, and it may be something as simple as, a work ethic or a philosophy of dealing with your employees. Like I love watching barbecue restaurants because it's so, the barbecue is so delicate, and people don't think that, but there's a fine line between great barbecue and really bad barbecue, and you have to be on point and your employees have to be on point. So, watching these guys run their barbecue restaurants really inspired me to deal with my staff, like this is how we have to treat things. This is how important we have to do things. So yeah, I take inspiration from everywhere. I've been blessed to be around some of the greatest coaches and the greatest coaching minds, going right now. I'm blessed to be able to pick up the phone and call people that could help me from all different sports. I'm blessed to know some of the best pit masters in Texas. I'm blessed to know some of the best country music guys, so, it all goes in, and if you're doing things right, you don't get, solely focused in on basketball. I'm just going to read basketball books. I'm learning everything about basketball. So much of coaching is not about basketball. So much of coaching is not about your sport, and it kind of goes back to the old saying, I grew up in a really small town, rural small town where, one year a guy may be the football coach, next year you have to coach women's basketball, the next year you have to coach baseball, and they always say, well, great coaches can coach anything, because at the baseline of everything is leadership and teaching and things like that. It's not necessarily the sport, the sport I think is secondary to everything else. So, the people that are really smart would branch out and look, all across their campuses, all across their towns. You'll find the people that are achieving at a high level in whatever they're doing and figure out why, and that's what I really try to do. I really try to branch out. I really try to, study things and, and find things that pertain that I can bring to my program, and that kind of the things that we stand for, and add to our program. And it's funny, our guys laugh all the time because, I talk about, hey, I was down at Miller's Barbecue today, and the way they ran their line, fellows, that's the way we need to get in there and get on our help side defense. And it just like, coach, everything's food with you, man. Everything's barbecue, but it pertains, and it's a way that I can open their mind, and maybe they can learn something through a different context. And so, yeah, we look, all across. I think the great leaders do that, exchange ideas and really fit things into their program.
Yeah, and that's a great way to kind of share different perspectives on kind of the same message with your players. And they might be ribbing you because you're always going back to the barbecue references, but subconsciously it's kind of like it's definitely a teaching moment for those guys, and it's just a different way to get the same message into their heads. So I really like that. And you mentioned a moment ago like having a great network of people to lean on. I know that while you were at Texas Tech, you befriended and came really close with Chris Beard, who's the head coach there now. He's done great things just building up that program, and I just want to hear from your perspective. Like, he was a young assistant coach then. Was there anything that you kind of noticed back then that either drew you to him as a friend and kind of like foreshadowing what you see now with his success at Texas Tech?
There was never any doubt in my mind that if Chris Beard ever got a chance to be a head coach, that he would kill it. He's a very magnetic person. He can really draw people in. He can really get people to buy into his ideas and what he wants and his goals and things. I always thought he'd be a great cult leader. Like if he wanted to be David Koresh, he probably could be. Thank goodness his morals are a little different than those guys, and his passion is basketball and not crazy stuff. So, but yeah, Beard's just a special person. The way that he can rally people and the way that he can get people to buy into a cause, and we have a group of friends that we float the river every year. We go to a different river in Texas and getting, for all the people outside of Texas, like we get in inner tubes and just float down the river. And some people may say, man, that sounds kind of crazy, but it's the best time of your life, I'll tell you. So, but it's amazing to me that we're floating down the river, and by the time we get down to the bottom, we've recruited like 30 people to come hang out with us, and and we're telling stories and singing songs, and he's just got a magnetic personality. So there's no doubt in my mind that when he ever got a chance to be a big time coach, that he would just take off. And what he's done at Texas Tech is not a surprise to me at all. He's an incredible leader. He's an incredible organizer. Everything in his program has a purpose. Everything in his program points towards the same direction. I think, those are all things that really come from Coach Knight. Be honest with you, that, we kind of learned as young, as a student assistant for me and as an assistant coach for him. But he's really taken it and really exploded with it. I think it's funny that, he's going to write a book, like we've always, exchange books and talked about books and, who are we reading, stuff like that. So now we're gonna have a Chris Beard book out there that I can send all my friends and say, hey, read this, man. You might learn something. So I think that's pretty cool.
That's really cool, and maybe he can do a fireside chat audio version of the book. I don't know if that's in
Yeah,
production or
man.
not, but
Everybody always asks me, say, hey, these fireside chats, man, is that him? I said, no, that's Chris Beard. That's his personality. That's who he is. Like, that's him every day, like that's him. That's just him sitting down and allowing a video camera to capture like 15 minutes of his life, so there's nothing put on about those fireside chats. I think they're genius, man. They really rally the fan base, and people love them. And he needs to have another one and get a fire lit right now, man. They need to win.
well, that's always the pressure in big time college basketball for sure. And you're right. Even in my limited interaction with him when he was at McMurry, he was always very authentic. And when I watched those fireside chats, even in the limited interactions I had on campus with him, it's almost like the exact same, right? And I think that's one of the really cool aspects of it. You could definitely pick it up, on camera. And I'm curious, how do you use authenticity in your coaching? You talked about barbecue and you talked about country music. Just talk a little bit about how you use authenticity with your players that you coach.
I just think in every every part of your life, you just have to be true to yourself. Especially nowadays, kids, they really pick up on people who put on a show, and if a person's putting on a show, you're not going to trust them. There's always going to be that little doubt as to who they really are. And so if you just go through life, and I'm not just talking about coaching, I'm talking about, at the grocery store talking to the cashier, like if you're just be you, and put yourself out there, and I just really believe in that. It's how I got the job at Texas Tech as a student. I just showed up to practice and I just worked hard, and that's who I am. I'm a farmer, I'm from Terry County, Texas, son of a cotton farmer, that's who I am. And so I believe if you like that with your administration, you're like that in interviews, you're like that with your players, people know who you really are and where you really stand. And there's a little bit of respect that comes with that. I've always been very open about, I shouldn't be here right now. I shouldn't be a college basketball coach. You kidding me? I'm a fat guy with a beard, like, go back. I'm from Terry County, Texas. Like, I shouldn't be here, but I am, I am. And I worked hard to get here, and I sacrificed to get here, and I don't run from it. I don't hide from it. And I just, it's important to me to walk through life, where everybody knows where I stand, and who I stand for, and what I stand for. So I think that's really important. I just think being authentic, I think being, true to yourself, I think having faith in yourself, and who you can be is important. And I'm not just talking about coaching, man. It's in life. It's what I tell my sons, my 8-year and my 4-year-old. Just be you. It'll be good enough for people. And if it's not, you don't need them in your life. Like, there's a line there where you can't please everybody, and that's okay. If somebody doesn't like me, that's fine. But who doesn't like I'm like Santa Claus, man. Like, like who doesn't like, I'm a once in a lifetime guy in my estimation, because there's not many people like me in this profession. So, so I have a lot of fun with it. I enjoy what I do. I enjoy my life. I love what I do. I love what I stand for. I have no problem standing and telling people what we stand for and what I stand for as a person. I have no problem, opening myself up to people, because I know that at my core, I'm solid. I know at my core that, I'm built around hard work and faith and things like that's going to stand the test of time. So, put yourself out there, and let people have fun with you. It's kind of liberating, and it's a really great way to live life.
I could not agree with you more, coach. And I think that, you know, when you start thinking about leadership, that authenticity and being real, and making sure that the people around you understand, exactly who you are and where you come from and what's important to you, and you owning it. You just said, hey, listen, I'm a son of a cotton farmer, wanting to be a basketball coach, and here I am. And I think that authenticity really kind of draws players to you, even if the players that play for you have no relation to farmers or don't even know what that means. So I love hearing that, and I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah. No, I think in today's world, with social media, there's so many people that build this, quote unquote brand, or this, persona or something, that they really start believing, what they post. And there's so many fake people out there, and it drives me crazy. And it's really bad in college basketball. It's really bad, from the quote unquote, trainers that want to train kids, or the agents, or whatever they want to call themselves, trying to get kids promoted, to the kids themselves. These kids create these, they may have two good things they do in a game. They might have two dunks in a game, but they got 10 turnovers and they were 2 for 12. And they missed all these defensive assignments, but they're really proud of themselves because they can clip out those 2 dunks, and they can put them on Twitter, and they'll get lots of likes. And so that creates this fake persona, or this false sense of, hey, people like me and I'm good, and they forget about all the mistakes they made. And so you have this whole group of kids that's just fake. There's not a whole lot of substance to them. And I think that's sad, because they don't have people in their life to step in there and be like, hey, come on, man, like, that's not authentic. That's not who you are, really. Let's really look at who you are. And part of being authentic and part of being who you are is knowing your weaknesses and knowing where you need to be better, and working on those things. And I just think we have a whole generation of people that just, create this persona on Twitter or on Instagram, or whatever the cool thing is now, Snapchats, whatever it is. And the authenticity is not there. Like, there's a bunch of fake people running around. So I always just told myself I was not going to do that, man. I was going to be a real person on social media. Like, if you look at my social media, it's about, crew basketball and Texas country music and barbecue and my kids and my wife. And, that's just who I am. That's what I am. And to me, it's a great way to live.
Yeah, and you really hit on a really hot button issue for me right now, because I do, a lot of talking about player evaluation and kind of like recruiting philosophy. And I think like what you're talking about goes back to like a bigger issue where players, younger players, if they don't have that strong leader or role model in their life, they think that the cool dunk or the social media following is what it's all about. And as a leader or as a program builder, in my opinion, I think it's about finding players that love the game. Like, do you love the game? Do you love the grind of like the road to success? Or are you here for the Twitter followers? And I think we've seen time and time again, even at the highest levels of sport, like the guys that are about the love of the game are the guys that over the long haul have that success, achieve that success consistently. And the guys that are about like, the other things, the things on the periphery, are the guys that end up not making it.
Yeah, no doubt. And you see it in professional sports. Like, I love following professional guys, and to me, the guy that I love, that I think does a great job with his social media presence and his presence in the community stuff, is JJ Watt. And I know he's just been released, but that guy's a stud, man. He makes a difference in his community, and he's a real dude. And I love watching. Dak Prescott's kind of the same way. I hope he signs with the Cowboys here in the next couple of days. Come on, Jerry, let's get it done. If you're watching this
Let's go.
podcast, so but and it's not hard to tell the guys that are real, as opposed to guys that are kind of have the fake presence. So the real guys really step up. Kevin Durant's another guy who's given millions of dollars to disaster relief stuff, and he's just a real person. He's a good guy, and so and you can see the difference. So yeah, social media can be great, but there's a huge setback with it. I think social media has really challenged our society right now. You're seeing, without getting into too much stuff, but you see a lot of the sheep mentality, the blind following, everything's turned into a highlight, everything's turned into a clip. Context is kind of gone out the window. Whole story has gone out the window. I think some of that's sad. I think as a society, we kind of lost our minds, and we worry about these little, 5-second snippets of life rather than what life really is. And so, bring this back to a program, like I really try to teach my kids, let's not worry about 5 seconds. Let's worry about the 40 minutes, when we're talking about the concept of the game, 5 seconds, a bad 5 seconds can ruin our game if we let that 5 seconds dominate our thoughts, so, let's turn off the highlights. Let's turn off the lowlights. Let's think about the context. Let's think about, the big picture. And, it's stuff that we fight as coaches. Social media has really changed the way we have to approach our kids nowadays. And, it's something that a lot of older coaches are really struggling with, changing and changing a mindset and trying to develop some different things in their kids. When they started coaching, they didn't have to deal with this. And so I think coaches that are finding success are coaches that are learning to deal with this. I call them a generation of celebrity. Like all these kids think they're celebrities because they got, 1,200 followers on Twitter or Instagram, whatever. Just because you have 1,200 followers doesn't mean you're a celebrity, fellas. Like, those people really don't care about you, and so you have to really change the way you think about things and the way you approach kids. And that's all due to, the social media crazy stuff.
Yeah. I think it's important for players to know that they're followers, not friends. And I think that's an important distinction
Yeah.
to make. And you talked about altering your coaching a little bit, or your handling of players due to social media and some of the offshoots of that. Like, talk about some of the ways that you've had to change your coaching that you've seen, just having to deal with some of the mindset that you just spoke about.
you know, Back when I first started coaching, coaches had to deal with their divas. That kid right there is a great player, but he's a diva. He thinks he's important. Now, nowadays, back in those days, you might have one diva on a team. Nowadays, you got 13 of them, on a 15. That's just changed. Like everybody thinks that they're important, and everybody can go to the locker room after practice and tweet out, man, coach is a real jerk, and he thinks that's important because 1,200 people are going to see it or whatever. So, so you just have to really keep kids. I think loyalty is something that's kind of gone out the window a little bit. I don't think there's loyalty to schools as much as there used to be. Along with social media, there's also, the rise of the AAU and the summer league and stuff like that. And I think sometimes kids, you're seeing this mass transferring of kids and stuff. Well, what's happening is kids are being more loyal towards their club teams and their 7-on-7 teams or whatever it is, and the loyalty towards the school is going kind of dwindling. And so when you get to college, they're still looking for their club team or their AAU team for support. Well, it's not there. You get to college, that goes away. You play for, Mary Hardin-Baylor, you play for Texas Tech or whatever. And so these kids are having a hard time dealing with having loyalty towards, their community. And so, I think that's something that you really have to preach. And going back to Chris Beard, like he does a great job of making everybody understand that program, Texas Tech, is bigger than everybody else, including himself. It's something we have to do here at Mary Hardin-Baylor. Like there's nobody bigger than Mary Hardin-Baylor basketball. I tell the guys all the time, if I left my position today, they would have 1,200 applicants tomorrow. Like Mary Hardin-Baylor basketball is going to go on, without any of us. So you have to really coach up loyalty. You have to really coach up community. You have to really coach up interaction between the kids. I think we've created a lot of kids that are very comfortable being individualistic. Kids nowadays in basketball, instead of going out and playing 5-on-5 or playing 3-on-3 or 2-on-2, like they'll just go and get some cones and like go through drills by themselves, and they'll get on the gun and they'll shoot by themselves. And I think that our society is really pushing kids into being individuals rather than, being comfortable being part of a team. And so those are all things I feel like we have to really coach up. Like we have to make everybody understand that our community is important, our school is important, our team is important. It's important to be a part of it. It's important to understand that these things are bigger than us and that we're fighting for a bigger purpose. Those are things that when I started coaching, you didn't have to emphasize as much because it was just kind of built in through society. Nowadays you have to really, focus on, team, community, doing things for each other. That's one of the main things I've felt that we've had to really emphasize over the past, 10 years.
Yeah, and you bring up the having to coach interaction with kids, definitely something that's new here over the last 10 years, without question. I had seen something where Coach Beard had a 2 or 3 day retreat at Texas Tech, and he had taken away all the cell phones for all the players. And I think he might have even given like everybody topics to like go talk to other players about. I mean, really forcing them into situations where you're having to interact with with your teammates, and that just didn't happen before. And I think we've seen it just at team meals where everybody's in their phone immediately. And those are the moments. I mean, I can still remember moments sitting with players after a team dinner on a Friday night before we play a road game, and just sitting there for half an hour chatting with guys, right? And how special that was, and how I look back on that as a young coach. And that's where a lot of those relationships were formed for me as a young coach. And so I think you're 100% right. And I want to get into the player evaluation aspect of this, because you're talking about a lot of things, and these are unseen characteristics. Like, these are hard, they don't show up on the stat sheet. That the head coach at the high school is going to tell you that he's a great kid and he's our best player. So like, how are you finding some of these traits in the players that you recruit? And just kind of talk about how you kind of go about your recruiting in terms of player evaluation of these intangibles.
For me, the most important thing is to go to a recruit and shake his hand and look him in the eye and see how he reacts to you. I can tell a lot about a kid in that one interaction. Can a kid shake your hand and look you in the eye and, tell you, thank you for coming to see me. And, I value, what you say. And, it's tough. I laugh at, I got a great staff here. They're great guys, but they're young. And so they're still learning and they're still trying to figure things out. And they get wrapped up in highlights and things like that. So they get wrapped up in only talking to recruits on through text or through Snapchat or through DMs on, so fellas, pick up the phone and call them or text them and say, hey, can we talk? I said, listen to their voice, man. Listen to them. Are they interested in talking to you? Are they, you can tell a lot about a kid just by talking to him on the phone or sitting and looking him in the eye and have a conversation. So those are things I lean on heavily. And it really irritates my staff, and they really like a kid and they really think he can be a great player. And I tell them, so I don't want to recruit him. Well, why? I don't, I can't tell you. He's not a fit here. Well, why? I can just tell you, I've been on this earth for 40 years. I've shaken tens of thousands of men's hands. Like, I can tell you if a kid fits our program or not, and so, and that may seem crazy, but to me, it goes back to everybody always asks me, so why do you have success? Like, why are you good? How did you make Sul Ross a, national title contender? What are you doing here to be number 12 in the country? You surround yourself with people that really care, and you surround yourself with high achievers, and you surround yourself with like-minded people, and you have to evaluate people to make sure they fit your program, they fit what you do. And it wasn't rocket science. Like, I don't know if at Sul Ross, if we ever had the most talented team in the league. Even the year we were really, really good and had a first team All-American, there were teams in our league way more talented, as in a traditional respect of talent. But we had kids that would fight. We had kids that would play hard. We had kids that cared about each other. We had kids that cared about their school and their program. They cared about me as a coach. And you find those guys by going out and talking to them and really, looking past some of the things that may not be as important, like, believe it or not, size isn't like that important in small college basketball. I can take a small guy who's going to fight and win over a guy, big guy who's just going to lay down. So, you got to find those traits. You got to find those things that don't show up in a highlight tape or things that don't show up in a stat sheet. You do that by talking to everybody involved with them. I call it circling up a player. I want to talk to your high school coach, your AAU coach. I want to talk to your Uncle Ray Ray. I want to talk to your mom. I want to talk to your mom's hairdresser. I want to talk to your first grade teacher. I want to get as much information about you as I can. And then you got to be able to read people, because nobody's going to tell you, oh, he's a terrible kid. No, you don't recruit. Nobody's going to say that, because nobody wants to hurt a kid. But you can pick up tells, just how they say things or how they talk about a kid. Like, they may be saying nice things about him, but really don't mean it, and I can tell that. So, it's recruiting kids and putting together a program is all about information, gathering information, processing it, and then understand what you value and making sure you're taking kids to value. So, recruiting is become easier because of all the video, the huddles and the Twitter and all the things that we have now to evaluate talent has made it easier, but it's almost made it harder to figure out what fits, because there may be a kid that fits all the physical tools, but can't think and has no heart. I don't want him, so those are things we have to figure out. Like I said, my young staff, we struggle with that a little bit, because they'll find a kid that they love as a player, but you got to figure out, do you love him as a person? Do you love him as a kid? Do you love him as a student? Does he fit our philosophies? So, those are all things you got to find. It's hard. It's not easy. But the smart coaches are figuring it out.
Yep. And you hit it on the head. It takes work. It takes hard work. You can't just sit on the couch and text and watch highlight videos. You got to pick up the phone. You got to talk to the people that are around these kids. And I love what you said a moment ago. You were talking about the people that surround you. And I think this is so important for young athletes to understand that, the people that you surround yourself with is who you become. And you had a line there where you were like, do we want this guy on the team? And I think that's a really important thing. It's one thing to have a really good player and bring him onto the team. It's a completely different thing to say, like, do we want to see this guy every day? Do we want to work with this guy every single day? So I love that that's at the core of your recruiting philosophy.
Well, having kids changes, and I've always valued, successful kids and good character, stuff like that. But I never realized how much I valued it until I had sons myself. I've got two kids, Waylon and Willie. Waylon's 8, Willie's 4. And their first heroes are guys on my basketball team. Like, Waylon's first hero is a kid named Caleb Thomason, and Caleb Thomason was a first team All-American. He had graduated with a 3.5 GPA. He was just one of the neatest kids you can coach. And if he's watching this, Caleb, I'm lying. I would never say any of this about you. So me and Caleb have one of those relationships. But my son absolutely worshiped Caleb Thomason when he was 4 years old or whatever. And I'm completely fine with that. If my kid grows up to be like Caleb Thomason, then I did my job as a father and as a coach. So, my young kids now, my youngest one, Willie, he loves Ty Prince, and so, Ty's a great player for us. So we have to keep kids on our team. We have to keep players on our team that my kids and my assistants' kids and the other coaches up down the hall, their kids can idolize, and that we're fine with it. If I want guys on my team that if I say, hey, my son grows up to be him, I'm gonna be completely fine with it. So, it really changes the way you think about recruiting. It changes, who you're going to bring in. It just means a little bit more. But in what's happened with that, though, is you really start, I want my sons to be very high achievers, and so I've been really looking for high achievers. That's something over the last couple of years I really want. I want kids that want to be great in everything. And so we've been able to find some guys that are just special, that they grind every day in every aspect of their life. They're working hard for the GPA. They're working hard for their basketball. They're active in the FCA. They're active in the community. They're active in their churches. That's really what we're looking for. And we've done a great job, I feel like, over the last, my time at Sul Ross and my time here so far, of finding those guys. And, there's no secret why we have success. We have great kids.
Yeah, it starts in the locker room. And you mentioned Sul Ross, and that was a situation where Alpine, Texas, small West Texas town, you go out there, they're a 5-20 team the year before you get there. And in the first year, you're able to have a winning record and you're able to win the conference 3 years later. So I just want to, I want you just to talk about kind of like the evolution of that team and really your mentality as a leader going into that program. Just like what were you thinking in terms of like challenges that you had to tackle right off the bat and just your overall mentality taking that job?
I didn't have a job when Sul Ross had opened. I was let go at McMurray. They had and you were there with us, and I think you guys had gotten out before I did. So, but they had a administration change, and I wasn't part of their plans, and so they got rid of me. So I'm sitting without a job. I don't know how I'm going to feed my kids. I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know where we're going to live, and it was relationships that got me to Sul Ross. And if you really look at Sul Ross, it wasn't a great job to take. They didn't have a traditional winning. They had a great 3-year run in the middle 2000s. But when I took over at Sul Ross, there was no sport there that had a winning record in 12 years. Every sport had a losing record for 12 years leading into when I got the job there. So I knew it was going to be difficult. I'll say this: the people at Sul Ross are great. I love them. That's home to me. It'll always be one of my homes. The people there are special. It's just a unique challenge, Sul Ross, because of where they are and the way their enrollment is. Sul Ross really tries to survive. Winning can't be at the top of their goals, because if they're focused on winning, they're not going to survive. They have to worry about just keeping the doors open till tomorrow. So it was hard when I got there, because I'm a guy that I want success, and I expect it. And I know that I could do it. I knew as a coach, I could turn it around. But nobody else thought that, so I remember the summer I got the job. It was just me and my AD, Bobby Mesker, who's a great guy. I love him to death. And our SID, Dave Garinger, at the time. And so we were talking, and we just gotten a big commitment from actually it was Caleb Thomason committed to us. And I said, man, we got a chance to be good next year. And Dave says, he goes, it'd be great if you just get us back in the ASC playoffs. And I said, Dave, just get us back in the playoffs. How about we win the division and host the playoffs? And he laughed at me, it's funny, but I really believe that we can do it. So, signing Caleb was a big part. Obviously, he turns into a first-team All-American. But we signed a kid named Jacob Dawson, who was a transfer from LCU. He's from Amarillo High, had been a high-achieving kid. He'd won in high school. He'd won at LCU. Just needed a change of pace, and really needed to go to a state school so he could use some of his military benefits from his father. So, but Jacob Dawson really brought in this mentality of, hey, we're not going to lose, and then we signed Xavier Webb, who was my assistant, became my assistant, now the head coach out there. X brought a great mentality from junior college. He was the high school player of the year in Wyoming a couple years before. Like, hey, we're just not going to lose. Caleb Thomason, is like a St. Bernard. He's big and he's ugly and he's dumb, but he finds a way to win, and so we had these just unbelievable kids that, they didn't care about the history, they just cared about what we were building. They really bought into what I was trying to sell them as a coach. They really loved each other as a team. And so that first year, when we won the division and, hosted the playoffs for the first time in 12 years, like, that was special, and that was maybe the funnest year I had at coaching, because there was zero expectations on us. Like, there was nobody thought we could win. And, the guys we inherited, Rocky Feliciano and Alex Harrison, really bought in. They really changed their mindset. I remember going in, just talking to them, thinking, God, these guys have no idea how to win games, and they didn't. But they opened their hearts to me and really turned it around. So, from that group, we were able just to add every year, recruiting wise, kids that wanted to win, and kids had a chip on their shoulder, and kids that didn't care that. Sul Ross isn't the end of the earth, but you can see it from there, so, they didn't care about our deficiencies. They didn't care that our budget was, less than half of everybody else in the league. They didn't care that our travel was insane. Sul Ross's travel is worse than anybody else in the country. They didn't care about that stuff. They cared about each other, and they cared about winning and doing right. So, we had 5 great years out there, and, it was fun. when I first got there, I didn't have an assistant coach. I did it by myself. I was teaching 12 hours in the PE department. I was driving the bus. My second year there, I had to coach the girls also. You know, we, we had a situation, I had to take over the girls, and man, I learned a lot about myself at Sul Ross. You know, I mean, after the deal at McMurry was unfortunate. I felt like I gave my all to that school, and they let me go anyways. You know, I understood why it happened, but still it hurt, you know. And then this doubt starts coming into your mind, like, well, maybe I'm not the coach I think I am, you know. And so going out to Sul Ross and winning there, you know, really just validated me that I'm good at what I do, and that, you know, what we do is good, and what the type of program that I want to build is good. And it really gave me confidence as a coach and as a person, and you know, that hey, I can really do this. You know, I'm not just a farmer from Terry County, Texas. You know, I know there's nobody else in college basketball that looks like me or acts like me, but I'm here. You know, so it was great. I hope that I've inspired other people. You know, I hope that through my journey through Sul Ross, and you know, I hope that there's other kids that look around and they're not supposed to be basketball coaches, or they're not supposed to be, you know, lawyers, or you know, some poor kid from, you know, from a small town in Texas, his parents can't really, you know, and he's got to go to junior college. And I hope I can inspire that kid to look at it and go, man, if he can be a college basketball coach, I can be a lawyer, you know, like we're going to figure this out, you know? So, I take a lot of pride in that. I think that, you know, I hope that people look at my story and kind of say, hey, I can do this too. You know, why not? Why, if he can do it, why not me? You know, so, I think at Sul Ross, that whole experience was special. It's, you know, I needed it in my life. If I didn't have that experience at Sul Ross, I wouldn't be the man I am today. So I'll forever be grateful to Sul Ross. I'll forever love that place. It'll always be one of my homes. The people out there will always be my brothers and sisters. And it was hard for me to leave. You know, it really was. It really was. But that goes to speak how special Mary Hardin-Baylor is. You know, what I think of this place. If I was willing to leave that to come here, you know, I think this is a special place. So yeah, Sul Ross was fun, man. It really was. And you know, we fought hard every day to get that thing to where it is. And now I hand it off to X, you know, my former player and assistant coach, and he's fighting every day to keep it, you know, to that level and make it even better. And so and he's going to do that, you know, and so you know, I have a lot of pride in what we did there, and really love that place.
Yeah, and it is an inspirational story, Cliff. I mean, I've been following your path since we met at McMurry, and you know, very inspirational because of all the challenges that exist there. And didn't know that you had to drive the bus. Didn't know that you didn't have assistant coaches. So, you know, like you said, all of the challenges were there, but you built the program with the right type of people. And I know that, you know, in addition to winning on the court, you guys had a GPA over 3.0 and had over 1,000 hours of community service on your team through your players. And I mean, you know, listen, I've worked in football, you've worked in basketball, not very common to have team GPAs over 3.0. So I think it just speaks to the character and the type of people that you bring into the program. And like you said, high achievers. So absolutely love that. And you hit on something that I really have been digging into recently, and that's coaching staff development. And especially at a smaller college, it's essential, right? Like you're dealing with probably a lot of first time coaches, maybe even guys that don't even know if they want to coach. And you're having to teach them how to coach. So I just wanted to give you the opportunity. Obviously, you know, you talked about your former assistant now leading Sul Ross, and I just want you to kind of talk about how you go about training and developing some of the coaches that you work with.
So I'll be real honest with you, man. That's one of my weaknesses. And that's something I've really had to be intentional about this year, and I really struggle with. So, uh, you know, when I got to Sul Ross, I didn't have assistants. I've always been the kind of guy that, you know, I just trust myself, and, you know, kind of always had the philosophy, you know, if you want it done right, just go do it yourself, you know? And so I have a hard time giving up stuff to my assistants. And so I get here to Mary Hardin-Baylor, and I get a great full-time assistant who's very experienced. He played here at Mary Hardin-Baylor. He's a good guy. He's going to be a great head coach one day. His name's Thomas Orr. He played here, one of the great players in ASC history. And then I've got 5 other guys here that are, you know, volunteering for me. So I've got a staff of 6 now. And it's been really hard for me to say, okay, go do this. You know, here's your job, go do it. And and it's something I have to be better at. It's something I have to be better at coaching these guys. You know, it's still, to me, I still go back to day one at Sul Ross, like, hey, we're going to turn this around, and I'm just going to shoulder everything. I'm going to do everything. And so it's been really hard for me. I talk with a lot of people about it. I talk with Beard about it a lot. I talk with Joe Golding about it. You know, how do you develop people? How do you develop these coaches? How do you make them better? And a lot of it's just trust. You know, I think I've got to trust them. I've got to give them duties. You know, I've got to give them, you know, I can't, there's a fine line between micromanaging and directing, you know, and so I got to tell them how things are done, you know, how I want it done right, but I want them to be able to do it and put their stamp on it, you know. Um, you know, I think I had great bosses young, you know, Steve Green, you know, my first head coach as a full-time assistant, you know, really just let me work. And I was able to develop a lot as a young coach in junior college there, you know, without having him have to tell me what to do every day. Like, I had to figure out, and in junior college, there's something to do every day, I promise you, you know, so there's issues you have to deal with every day. So, you go work for Jim Sagona and Pat Knight, and those guys really helped me because, you know, I got to work. And so I really want to let these guys do that. I think, you know, you've got to find, as a head coach, you got to find that fine line between, you know, micromanaging and directing. You know, you have to teach them your philosophy. You have to teach them your stance on things. You know, what does your program stand for? And you have to let them go and take their task and kind of figure out their own way within that thing. It's just like, you know, we're going to tell one of our guards, hey, this is what we want done. This is how we're going to do things. But we run a motion offense. I'm not going to give him a set. I'm not going to tell him how to do it every time down the floor. You know, I'm going to give him the freedom to figure it out, but he's got to do it within the team concept. He's got to be team first. He's got to screen. He's got to pass. You know, there's things I want him to do. And so I think that's one of our strengths as a coach, and one of my strengths as a coach and our program, the way we run things, is we allow our players to really have a lot of freedom. And so I've got to be able to develop that with my assistants, you know, give those guys enough freedom to where they can put their stamp on a program and kind of develop themselves a little bit, but I have to give them enough direction to where things are getting done the right way and the things, you know, up to the standard I want. So, you know, it's something I'm still in progress. I'm still working on it. You know, that's going to be one of my main tasks as a head coach this off season, is kind of develop more of a system for my assistants, you know, more of a program. So it's not just willy-nilly, here, go do this, you know, where, you know, there may be you know, some kind of a guidebook or, you know, whatever. I'm, you know, something I'm working on this off season, but we're going to be better at that next year.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like you said, I mean, the head coach position encompasses so much, and this is an often overlooked piece, is just kind of like continuing to develop the coaches around you, right? And I think that's important, not only to the way that you do things, but also helping them be better people and better coaches. So yeah, I think that there's a lot of coaches that would be in very much agreement with what you just said. And, you know, you're talking about UMHB and obviously your success at Sul Ross over that 5 years, and really turning that program around to success that they had not seen there, led you to getting offered the job at UMHB. And so I want to hear from you. This is a completely different situation in terms of a program that's coming off of a history of success, and a coach that has had success before you, I think had been there 20 plus years. And so I just want to hear about the change in mentality going into the Sul Ross situation and now entering into the UMHB situation.
Well, at Sul Ross, I used to get irritated. You know, we'd have a game on Thursday night, and then we'd be, you know, play again on Saturday. It's kind of our conference schedule, Thursday, Saturday. And so, you know, Friday morning, I'd always come into work a little early and pick up the trash in the stands and, you know, make sure everything was clean for Saturday, you know, and, you know, we just didn't have the manpower at Sul Ross to, you know, clean the arena twice in a week. So, you know, they just kind of let it go Thursday and Friday, and we'd pick it up after Saturday. So, so that was always something I was adamant about. So I would pick up the trash. And I'll never forget the first time I came in to Mary Hardin-Baylor. We came in here to practice the night before the game. And there's a group of people kind of standing in the corner waiting for us to get done. So I kind of walk over and say, hey, you know, what are we doing? You know, what's the deal here? And they said, well, we're waiting for you to get done. We're going to clean the arena. I said, no, you know, you're not going to bother us. Go ahead. So this group of ladies, they go up in the stands, and they have this, you know, rag and spray, and they're wiping down every seat. and they're sweeping the arena and they're making sure everything is clean and ready to go. And I just remember just shaking my head, just thinking, God, if I could ever get this job, you know, if they care that much about the way their arena looks and how clean it is and stuff. And you know, you walk through the hallways and there's not a scuff on the tile, you know, it gets waxed or buffed every, whatever, every night, you know, and just the kind of pride they took in that stuff. So I always told myself, if I ever had a chance to get this job, you know, because this is a special place. And so the more you compete against them and the more you kind of see the way they run things and you know, obviously Coach DeWeese, nobody has more respect for Ken DeWeese than I do. You know, getting to compete against him was special, but also I knew about him. You know, me and his son have been friends for a long time. His son's a coach. He's an assistant coach up at Wyoming. So I've known the DeWeeses for a long, long time and got a ton of respect for Ken. And so I always felt like whenever, you know, he decided it was his time to hang it up, that I would be honored to have this job. And so, you know, this year when he made the decision to step down and retire and spend time with his family, that, you know, I really wanted this job. So it's just different, you know, it's a different mentality, not just from Sul Ross. I don't want this to sound like, you know, we're so much better than Sul Ross. Sul Ross has its positives. Sul Ross has great people. But Mary Hardin-Baylor is just different than anybody else in the country. You know, when I got hired and it was announced, I got text messages come out the wazoo, you know, from all the other coaches, but from, you know, the director of admissions and the director of financial aid and just everybody around campus. And, you know, hey, congratulations, welcome to the family. But the thing that really stuck out to me was everybody had used the same phrase. Everybody asked me the same thing, every single one of them. And they all asked me, what can we do to help you win? And that just, man, just that's what I've always prayed for. You know, I've always wanted to be the coach of a program where my job was to win. You know, my job wasn't to drive the bus. My job's not to change the coolant lines in the bus. My job's not to teach, you know, 12 hours in the PE department. My job is not, you know, fundraising. My job is not, that's not my job. My job is to win basketball games. And I have prayed for that and I wished for that. And now I have it. And so it's special. This is a special place. You come to Mary Hardin-Baylor as a coach to compete for national championships. You come to Mary Hardin-Baylor as a player to compete for national championships. You know, you come here to compete on the highest level. You come here to get the greatest student experience. You come here to be involved in a Christian, you know, campus and really develop yourself in you know, your social life. You develop yourself in your spiritual life. You just develop yourself as an athlete. It's a special place. So I knew I wanted this job from the first time I stepped in this campus. I knew that this would be the only place I would leave Sul Ross. You know, I was not going to leave Sul Ross for any other Division III job in the world. I love Sul Ross. We had it rolling. I really felt like had I stayed this year, we had a legitimate chance to win a national championship. You know, we had it, you know, we had a thing to the point where we were competing on a national level. So, yeah, that should speak to what I think of Mary Hardin-Baylor. This is a special place. We're going to win national championships. We're going to compete on a national level. Our players are going to be special. Our players are going to win every award out there. You know, but on top of that, our players are going to be high achievers. They're going to graduate. They're going to be great fathers. They're going to be great husbands. You know, and they're going to have great stories to tell their children and grandchildren about how they competed for national championships. So, you know, this is a special place. I'm blessed to be here. I'm so honored that Dr. O'Rear and Dr. Theodore and Randy Mann, our AD, have chose me to be their basketball coach. You know, it's just an honor every day to come to work here, and I hope I can do them all proud.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, you've earned it along the way, without question. Just hearing your story here today, and right now, you know, you talked about winning, and that's ultimately what you're going to be judged on, in addition to those other things. And right now, you guys are off to a really hot start. 12-3. I think you said you had won your last 9 games. So just kind of talk about what's going right at the moment, and just kind of like the success early on in putting your culture in place within that program.
Yeah, people kind of thought I was crazy taking this job in the middle of a pandemic, you know, like, and really only one player that plays significant minutes for us is a returner from last year. So we had to completely rebuild this thing over a summer. And luckily I had Thomas, my assistant coach, to help. And Alex Nixon is one of our other assistants who was here over the summer. So those guys put in yeoman's work trying to find kids that fit our program. We were very fortunate to find a couple transfers. We have a kid right now, it's a sophomore, is leading the nation in scoring. He's averaging about 30 a game. We have another transfer that's, one of the more talented guys in the nation. So, with those two guys and then some of the great pieces, the competitive pieces we put around them, we've been fortunate to put together a team that's not only young and very competitive now, but we're going to be very competitive for the long haul. Like this isn't a thing where we hot shotted it and we got 1 year to be good and we got to rebuild. Like this thing is built for future success too. So we were fortunate. All goes back to finding good players. And in the middle of a pandemic, we had to really lean on our network. Like we weren't able to go out and watch tournaments and things. Like there just wasn't that kind of stuff going on. Like we found kids because we had people pick up the phone and say, "Hey, congratulations on getting a job. I got a kid you need to look at." And that's how we put this team together. So very blessed that I got great friends. Very blessed that I've done I've been lucky to develop a network of high school coaches around the nation, and especially here in the great state of Texas that are willing to pick up the phone and help us. And we're able to put together some great kids, and we're having a lot of fun right now, man. These kids, it took them a little while to kind of figure out that the fat guy from Terry County with the beard, knows what he's doing. It took them a while to figure out, hey, this is different. This isn't what I'm used to. But once things started to click and they started seeing some success, and they started seeing that, oh, okay, there's a reason why we do that. I thought coach was crazy, but it really does matter. That really helps us win. And so now we got guys that believe in what we do, and we're rolling. We're the hottest team in the country. I told a guy the other day, we're trying to find some postseason opportunities for our kids. And I told him, I said, hey, I'll meet you in the Walmart parking lot in Lincoln, Nebraska, if I have to. Like, I don't care. Like, let's play. And so I got that much faith in my players and my guys. I think we're the best team in the country right now. And we're rolling, and hopefully we can finish out these last couple of weeks and really just, put a stamp on what we were able to achieve this year.
Yeah, very impressive. Again, in addition to all of the challenges that we're all facing with COVID, so very impressive indeed. And I just want to wrap up today with kind of talking about a couple of things that you're really passionate about. You said your son's names are Waylon and Willie. I'm assuming that is a country music reference potentially. And I just want to hear, like, do the players like country music? Do you make them listen to country music, or how does that work? What gets played in the locker room, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Well, I mean, I'll let them play what they want in the locker room, but anytime I get a hold of the Ox, I'm gonna expand their horizons a little bit, So we got a play call that's called Down and Out, and so that's one of my favorite guys, Randy Rogers. He's got a great song named Down and Out, So I made them all learn the words, and so they, before practice one Friday, they had to do little Randy Rogers karaoke before I'd let them practice, and so yeah, they're all learning, man. They those guys have to think I'm crazy, like I get it. I am different. I'll admit I'm a little crazy, but it all goes part to being part of the program, like getting these guys outside their box a little bit, getting them to understand that it's okay to be a little different. It's okay to like something different. It's okay to act a little goofy sometimes. It's all part of being part of a team and the camaraderie. And so, these guys, they love to sing, they love to dance. So they incorporate singing and dancing and all that stuff into our warm-ups. And, so that's cool. So yeah, I love country music, man. I'm blessed to, hopefully this pandemic will give us a little relief here in the near future, and we can start getting some concerts back. And living here in Belton, I'm right in the middle of all the great stuff, man. Like I'm just an hour from Austin, and I mean, there's so many opportunities for some great live music, and that's something I really miss in my life. Me and my wife really enjoy doing that. I enjoy taking my sons. I guess people can think I'm crazy, but like I took Waylon when he was about 5 years old to Lukenbach, and we got to see Walt Wilkins play a Sunday afternoon show, and Yeah, Waylon spent more time chasing the chickens around. He didn't listen to Walt Wilkins, but after the show was over, Walt actually came up to us and thought it was really cool. I brought my son out there and asked him what his name was. He said Waylon, and Walt looked me in the eye and said, "Why did you do that to that poor kid?" And so that's something. Yeah, I also believe that you can't let one thing consume your life. If I just let basketball and coaching consume my life, then I would miss out on so much more. And it's so important to me to be a great father. And it's important to me to, have my sons have a wide variety of things and that they enjoy and that they love. And so, it's something that I was able to connect with, with my grandfather. He loved country music and we'd ride around in the oil field truck listening to Waylon and Emmylou Harris and Merle Haggard, and so it's something that I can share with my kids and I can share with my players and share with my assistant coaches. I introduced them to the Marcus King. We went recruiting last night, and I had the Marcus King band concert going on in the truck, and by the end, they're all trying to play cool, but at the end of it, they're all bobbing their heads, so I converted 3 of my guys last night. So, but I think it's important to have passions in life outside of what you do for a living. I love traveling. I love eating great barbecue and great food in general. I love country music. I love 6-man football. I have a lot of passions in life. I have a lot of things I enjoy. And I just think that if you can live life with a smile on your face every day, man, like you're going to have a great life. And it's not all about, how much money you have or how much fame you have or whatever that stuff. Like, find things that you truly love and do it, whether that just be, turning on the radio or sit out in your backyard around a fire or whatever it is, just find something that you love to do it and put a smile on your face and enjoy life.
Amen. Amen. Great way to end this interview. And Coach Carroll, thank you so much for sharing your story today and wishing you best of luck with the rest of the season.
All right, brother. Hey, I think it's cool that you let me come on, man. Be on the beginning stage of the podcast. I know you're going to blow up, man. It's going to be like a national phenomenon. And, here in a couple of years, you have to answer, who the heck is Clif Carroll and why was he on the show so early, man? So I think that's pretty cool, man.
Not at all, man. I appreciate the kind words and really glad you could join us today. So thank you so much, man.